It's been almost 7 months since we last covered that influx of migrants coming across the border, and you heard them saying, Chicago, Chicago, Chicago. Where are you going? Chicago.
¿A qué estado te dirías? Oregon, ¿tú? Chicago, ¿tú? Chicago, ¿tú? 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 ¿Tú?
3 months later, Mayor Brandon Johnson opened up facilities for these exact people at the expense of local residents in Chicago. 2 months after that, he opened up hotels. He opened up after school programs, started giving them grants, giving them money. Fast forward to today, Chicago is on the verge of a war. What kind of war? An immigration war, where the locals are now being displaced by the people that Brandon Johnson and the like have allowed into the inner cities of Chicago to displace Black America. Too far, you think? That's exactly what we were told when we told you guys they were coming. You're just trying to stoke hate. But this is not even real. This is not even happening. This is going to be the running theme for the next 2 months. Every time you see a flare-up, the next statement in the news will be, it's not happening. There are no records of this. They've lied. People are just panicking. Don't worry about that. Nothing to see here. I keep going back to that movie. I think it was Naked Gun, where he walks up to a scene and the entire mall is on fire. Fireworks are, and everything is exploding behind him, and he steps in front of the crowd with the fire behind him and he says, "Move along, there's nothing to see here. There's nothing to see, move along." Meanwhile, behind him is absolute chaos. While that was a funny scene in the movie, the unfortunate thing is, it's reality now. You can blatantly see something happening and they'll tell you, nope. Now, we heard about Colorado. And even when it happened in Colorado, folks said the same thing. Y'all are tripping. That video was from forever ago. Or that video is fake. We saw people walking down the street telling you that this happened. That too is fake. There were people in Chicago threatening the illegal immigrants from Venezuela that if you act up, we will act too. That too, all engineered. Why? That is the real crux of the question. Why is it that when citizens come forward and tell you with film that this is happening, the narrative changes to you are a bigot, you're a xenophobe, you just don't like people coming here, and you need to stop because this is not happening. Or they'll tell you, but these people are only acting like this because they're in such dire need. You should open up your heart and your home. Now, I remember a certain individual, a president now, current president, had told Black America certain things were going to take place. Now, remember, he said this in 2019, 2020. And the words he used at the time seemed almost as though they were coming from a position of, I want to help. But when you go back and analyze his words now, they almost seem like they were a premonition, almost predictive, almost planned. Because in his wording, he said by 2030, certain things were going to take place and a certain demographic were going to have less pulling power, less opportunities, and they will have to work with a certain demographic who is now overtaking them in numbers.
Now, but all kidding aside, I've known you my whole life, most of you. I've worked with you my whole life, most of you. I've been around doing this for a long, long time. I don't always get it right, but I always take responsibility. When I get it wrong, I acknowledge I got it wrong. But my overarching objective, if we cannot make significant progress on racial equity, this country is doomed. It is doomed, not just because of African Americans, but because by 2040, this country is going to be minority white European. Hear me? Minority white European. And you guys are going to have to start working more with Hispanics, who make up a larger portion of the population than y'all do.
Ironically, or not so ironically, the Black population starts to fluctuate between 41 to 43 to 44, 42, 45, and now it's down to about 43 million. Oddly enough, the population of not just Hispanics, but illegal immigrants who are Hispanic are almost up 30 million. Now, considering that they were just underneath Black America, where does that put them now? Oh, that's right, in the majority of the minority. Kind of like he predicted. Now, what does that actually yield? It yields two things. One person has to give up something to make these people feel comfortable, and usually it's the person that has what? Less representation. Biden also told you that too. He said you would have to work more with the Hispanics, who will make up a larger population than y'all do.
This country is going to be minority white European. Hear me? Minority white European. And you guys are going to have to start working more with Hispanics, who make up a larger portion of the population than y'all do.
That was not accidental speak. He had planned it. Because if you remember before this, he also said to the people coming across the border, keep coming. Now, I know there are going to be many that will say, you just don't know what you're talking about. He would never do that. I'm not saying what he would do. I'm telling you what he said. I'm going by what he said, gauging it against what has happened. And what I can tell you, I used to think Joe Biden never stood by his word. He's a liar. I stand corrected. Joe Biden tells the truth. Or at least in this situation, he did tell the truth. 100% told the truth. He told you what was going to happen, and it happened. This might be the first time he's been honest in his life. But at whose expense? Black America. Now, for all the conversations about left and right, Republican and Democrat, let's focus on what we can tangibly see and who's behind it right now. Right now. This particular scenario didn't happen 4.5 years ago. It happened during this regime. The same way that we like to blame when somebody's in power what happens on them, why aren't we doing it now? Do you realize what kind of chaos this can cause? Let me paint the picture for you. You have a group of military-aged, weapon-ready men coming across the border by the busloads and telling you directly they've already been selected to go to a certain state and a certain city. Now, they arrive there by the thousands. They're greeted with arms wide open. They're given accommodation, given food, given health care, some of them even given houses. However, there are people already living there who don't get nearly as much help. This starts a little spark of not just envy, but anger. Now, over time, this anger seeds. It just sits there. And the more people show up, the more help they get, and the less attention is paid to the people who already live there. Now they're getting more angry. Now they show up to town halls. What is up with this? What about us? And all the mayor can tell you is, we need to look after the immigrants. Fast forward to 2024, and here you're on the cusp of what could potentially be an inner city civil war. And the mayor is nowhere to be found to fix it. Why? It was planned. You were sold. You were sold a bag of goods, and you bought it. You were sold emotional distress, you bought it. You were sold emotional warfare, and you bought it. You know what you get as a result of buying those things? You get to reap the investment. And that investment is going to damage you significantly. See, you didn't think about the long-term ramification of this until it came home to roost. Now what you have kicking off is people who are naturally violent people to begin with, who don't like their territory encroached on, now feel like they have to act. And when we told you that this is exactly what they were hoping, is to stoke racial tension between the Hispanics and the blacks, and we told you and asked you, pleaded you not to react, and you did not listen, and you allowed it to happen, and now you're in the throes of your emotional reaction, you're going to give them exactly what they were looking for, your demise. They succeeded for the most part with Planned Parenthood, yeah. But what's really going to work is you eradicating yourself over trying to defend your area. Mind you, they're not sending in any help to you. They've already got you thinking that the ones they could send in to help are against you anyway. Why would you call them? Do you see how it painted a beautiful tapestry for them, but an absolutely horrible show for you? You can't do anything right in the situation. Here's why. If you retaliate, you hate people. If you stand your ground, why are you standing up for a white supremacist nation? If you run, you're a coward. Nothing you do in this situation gets you any brownie points. At least not on the social sphere. So maybe turn your attention away from what people think and start protecting yours. They bank on you doing two things, and that is reacting out of emotion and reacting out of anger. Do neither, but stand your ground. There are tons you can do by just standing your ground. Don't be the pushover. See, Colorado is finding out the hard way, and they've now gotten some reinforcement that is not law enforcement. I can't tell you how to approach this. But unfortunately, you kind of brought this on yourself. Unfortunately, when you don't listen to good advice, you have to suffer the bad choices and the consequences. This might just be your lot. I don't know how this is going to end, because you cannot bank on Mayor Brandon to do anything either, because he's one of the few that actually caused this to happen. He's already sold you out. You have two choices, really. Sit back and take it. Or show us what Chicago's about. And I don't mean violent. Please, I don't want anybody saying that Too Strong is calling for violence. Get that thought out your head right now. There are tons of things you can do legally to end this. And that's coming up in November. And I'm talking about state. The choice is yours, though. You have your children's future at stake, or you can watch it all dissipate right before your eyes by turning a blind eye to what's happening. I can tell you this much. The powers that allowed this to take place in your city are banking on you being soft and allowing it. Prove them wrong.